What is a survival myth that is completely wrong and could get you killed? If you're driving during a tornado warning, don't get out of your car and climb up the side of an overpass to hide under a bridge. This myth became famous after amateur video of man and his daughter hiding under an overpass. But the one they chose had some unusual construction that offered them protection in a way most don't. Wind speed increases the higher you get from the ground, and the narrow passages can create a wind tunnel effect, taking the flying debris picked up by the tornado and sending it straight through you at 200 miles per hour or more. What about lying in a ditch? Genuine question. This is definitely something I learned growing up. Obviously, if your vehicle can take you to shelter before the tornado reaches you, do that instead. What I was taught is that if there are no other options, get in the ditch, get as low as possible, and protect your head as the tornado hopefully passes over. As for shelter, a basement or a cellar is preferable. If not, take shelter in the ground floor bathroom. The plumbing helps reinforce the walls. I've also heard to take a mattress in with you to use as cover. Debris being whipped around by high force winds is dangerous. Basically, get as low to the ground as you can and cover your head. I'm in no way a tornado expert, but I grew up in an area where tornadoes were a natural disaster we prepared for, and spent many a tornado drill with my face way too close to the school's bathroom floor. In Australia we don't have basements or cellars for majority of Australia anyway, so we are always told in cyclone season to get in a bath and put a mattress on top if possible. In Australia at least, you do not need to identify or try to catch the snake that bit you. The antivenom is universal. Source link. Excerpt: do not try to catch, kill or identify the snake. This is important. In hospital we no longer need to know the type of snake. It doesn't change treatment. 5 years ago we would do a test on the bite, blood or urine to identify the snake so the correct antivenom can be used. But now we don't do this. Our new antivenom neutralizes the venoms of all the 5 listed snake genus. So it doesn't matter what snake bit the patient. Read that again: one injection for all snakes. Polyvalent is our one-shot wonder. Stocked in all hospitals. So most hospitals no longer stock specific antivenoms. Edit added source reference. Also, do not do an hour's worth of hockey training after being bitten. Knew a guy who did that. Did he make it? He knew a guy. Do not try to leave a deserted island. If you are stuck, you will almost certainly die before someone spots you. There were some collaborate efforts on the net looking for airplane debris or damaged ships after a massive storm. It's so difficult to tell things apart even from good satellite pictures. Is that something? Or just another of the countless reflections and weird shadows? Searching islands is much less surface than searching an ocean, and the chances for water, shelter and food are so much better. Punching the biggest guy in prison on your first day. Real talk. From an actual former criminal. Your best bet in jail prison is to just be normal and blend in. It isn't as extreme as media makes it out to be. If you're nice and chill, do they leave you alone? No, they don't. The entire point is to stay out of the eyes of more hardened criminals to begin with. Just eat your oatmeal and stay in line. Don't drink water from cactus. It's not potable and likely to trigger vomiting, diarrhea, and you will get more dehydrated. Yes, I believe there's this one very specific species where the water is safe to drink. But in general, cactus water is a big no-no. One of the few species you can drink water from is the beaver tail cactus and the fishhook barrel cactus. Everyone focuses on food and water, but completely underestimates how quickly exposure will kill you dead. In some cases, you won't last 24 hours. Bonus addition to this: every guide I have ever read says to make fire first. Making fire is ducking hard sometimes. There are many environments where you flat cannot guarantee a good fire. Deserts. Because of lack of fuel and anything especially wet. If you get halfway through the night and realize you can't make fire, you are going to have problems. So make shelter. You can always guarantee a shelter and insulated sleeping spot. Make sure your bedding is at least 4 inches thick when you lay on it. I guarantee you'll underestimate just how bad the ground sucks the heat out of you. Make your shelter as small, thick and weatherproof as possible. Went for a survival camp in the forest with scouts once. The first shelter I made was really tall, about 4 feet, and I didn't put much insulation in it and was freezing. The next shelter I made was between 2 fallen logs and stuffed as much moss as I could in all the cracks. Had about 4 inches of moss and pine needles on the ground and on the roof. I actually got too hot during the night, but I'd rather wake up in a pool of sweat than freeze my nuts off. Yup, I made a similar mistake when I was learning. To be honest, that's why I wanted to mention it. Anyone can sweat their tits off at 40 degrees working hard in the daylight and then think, duck, I'm hot now. It'll be fine when I go to bed and have no clue the life-threatening heck they are in for. My first shelter was barely better than a tarpaulin to and a thin pile of damp moss, and I cold made kebabs with my nips in the morning. Now I know how to bury bedroll burritos if I'm desperate, or my sentimental favorite. I dug a shallow grave for myself, burned a fire to coals on it, tossed a bunch of yucca fronds to insulate me from the ash, tossed a crappy like $20 sleeping bag in and threw a tarp over the top and slept like a sweaty baby, haha. It was in the Great Basin way, the duck up at like 6,000 feet in spring. Got below freezing, but I was comfier than my friend in the truck, haha. I shared that story ages ago in a survival sub and someone dubbed it the Luau BBQ pit method, and I'm running with it XD. My most practical fav is the debris hut though. Most people probably are aware of this, but if you're legit suffering from diarrhea, you need to be doing more than just drinking water, because you're also losing a lot of salts, electrolytes, and not replenishing those can really duck you up. You can make a pretty basic Pedialyte Gatorade at home from adding 6 teaspoons of sugar and a half teaspoon of salt per liter of water. It won't taste super great, but you can throw in other flavorings to mask it, like lemon juice or similar. I did Peace Corps in a tropical region, and most of the volunteers came to dread the inevitable parasite GI infection episodes, not just because of being incredibly sick, but also because of having to drink liters and liters of Oars, which is Peace Corps preferred Pedialyte knockoff, haha, edited to show more accurate salt and sugar amounts. I wasn't aware that Oars was the unbranded, legit name for this electrolyte cocktail, but I do mention it in the 3rd paragraph, and I've already gotten 50 comments from people correcting me. Most pharmacies stock electrolyte powder. It's worth having a few sachets available for when you need it. Tastes bloody awful, but will make you feel a lot better. Follow flying birds to find water. They could be flying anywhere, like away from the water they were just at. Don't tie a rope around your waist and expect it to save you from a fall. Sure, it might prevent you from hitting the ground, but you can still damage your internal organs and break your back doing this. Safety harnesses go around your hips and legs, not your waist. Ducking Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises, my mans gets his back kneed in by a person and is essentially disabled, but survives falling like 100 feet with a thin rope around his waist lower back without injury. It would essentially be the same or even worse as falling onto a tied rope from that height. Or even worse. Much worse. Opening windows during a tornado. Even as a child growing up in the Midwest, I never understood this. I always thought, doesn't it let the high winds in? I remember in 1st grade we had a tornado warning and some of the teachers were wasting time by opening windows. Even as a child growing up in the Midwest, I never understood this. I always thought, doesn't it let the high winds in? Yeah. The idea of opening windows during a tornado was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how they destroyed buildings. People thought they caused buildings to explode because of the change in air pressure, when it's really the winds and debris doing the damage. It's not that the wind is blowing, it's what the wind is blowing. If you get hit with a Volvo, it doesn't really matter how many sit-ups you did that morning. Not so much a survival myth, but a common camping mistake that an amateur survivalist might make: never use rocks that are in or close to a riverbed for a campfire. Ever. Many get tiny bits of water trapped inside the rocks. Then when heated by a fire, it turns into a lovely grenade due to the water being heated. AMD turned into steam, expanding quickly. Hot bits of rock everywhere. People like river rocks because they are smooth and easy to cook off of, and they look cool. But they are crazy dangerous. Plenty of rocks all around. Find another. We found this out in Scouts when I was around 12. I'm amazed no one got hurt. Everyone just thought it was cool. 12-year-olds are masters of not dying from stuff that should have killed them. The saying says God watches over children and fools. So foolish children must be the most divinely protected group on the planet. Can confirm. Didn't die age 12 after falling in a hole. If lost in a hot desert, do not ration out your water. Drink when you are thirsty and stay hydrated with what you have. Even if it only lasts a couple hours, just to keep your mind body working. Lost hikers have been found dead with plenty of water by their sides because they tried to ration it, became dehydrated without realizing it and eventually died. And no, I still don't know if drinking your pee is a survival alternative. In our relab school they told us this. Drink when you're thirsty. Don't put it off. Edit: if I remember correctly, it was basically logic along the lines of, if you're starting to feel thirsty you needed to drink water 30 minutes ago. I'm never thirsty. I drink when I have signs of dehydration. Assuming I've forgotten to driving regularly. Edit: nope. Duck you autocorrect, I did not type driving. That's not even the number of letters I went for. If trapped lost in snowstorm while driving, do not leave your car. You are literally inside a shelter already. A shiny one. It is easier to spot a snow-covered vehicle than a snow-covered corpse. B. Do not keep your engine running. It's a snowstorm. Your exhaust will block. You will nap. Snugger bugger. You're dead. Wait for storm to pass. Check exhaust is clear. Run engine in short bursts. See if you have ignored these steps and are now walking in the snowstorm because your sense of direction is flawless. Do not remove any clothing layers. You will believe you are getting hot. You will rationalize it's from burning calories. You will die. The hot feeling is you losing body temp. You are now slowly dying. If you still have your wits, retrace your steps and head straight back to your car. Wait for rescue. But if your car runs off the road and the weather clears, get out and walk or run to nearest town. Your car will most likely not be visible. People died in Sweden by waiting in their car for days. Just an hour's walk from a town. I heard that if you die in Sweden you die in real life. That the first thing you need to do is make a fire. Fire's no good if it starts raining. Shelter and raised bed first. Even if you can't get a fire going or collect water, you'll have a dry place to sleep through the night to get a fresh start in the morning. And raised bed is hella important. Insulates you from the cold ground, will suck the warmth right out of you in the wet, and any bugs, snakes, etc. that tend to cross the area you've laid down in. How raised does it need to be? Effectively as high as you can get without putting too much energy into it, but you don't need to go above knee height or so. An inch or two is still better than nothing though. Building a raft to sail to civilization. If you ever find yourself marooned on a deserted island, stay on the island and be found alive versus never found or found dehydrated and dead of exposure. Also walking to safety. If you get lost and your car breaks down, stay with the vehicle. They always find the vehicle. Its inhabitants not so much. If you're that ducked, burn a tire a bit away from the car. Thick black smoke will be visible for a long ways. Small plane pilot here. I can see smoke from really far, and it always grabs attention and merits a diversion. I've dispatched fire trucks more often than I thought I'd do to deal with fires. I fly low enough to tell if it's a controlled fire or not. Black smoke is visible right away, and will have every pilot in the area flying to you and reporting it. Do not wander off to look for help. Stay put. Stay by your car, or wherever you realize that you are lost. The more you move, the harder it gets for rescue to find you. Make yourself visible, but do not try to find the way back yourself. You already don't know where you are. You don't know where you're going. Mythbuster tested the myth about ships dragging people down with them. They rated this myth as false, but they were wrong. Surfacing, Lightler spotted the ship's crow's nest, now level with the water, and started to swim towards it as a place of safety before remembering that it was safer to stay away from the foundering vessel. Then, as water flooded down one of the forward ventilators, Lightler was sucked under. He was pinned against the grating for some time by the pressure of the incoming water, until a blast of hot air from the depths of the ship erupted out of the ventilator and blew him to the surface. Link. Large ships are incredibly dangerous when they are sinking. They can drag you down with them, or they can roll on top of you. You should always swim away from them. Also, modern boats are full of fuel oil, lubricating grease, hydraulic oil, diesel, and a wide variety of other fluids which both float on water and are flammable. It's quite difficult to clear your face, eyes, and hair if you surface through a heavy slick of this crap. Additionally, it's dangerous and difficult to swim through a floating debris field, especially if you're now blind. Bottom line, if you have to bail without a lifeboat, do it on the windward side of the boat, because the wind will help push the oil slick and debris away from you. They teach this in the Navy. If you get stabbed by something, do not try to remove the object. You will make it worse and potentially bleed to death. Depending on where you were stabbed, if you try and pull it out, leave it be and get help. Furthermore, if you've been stabbed in the eye, leave the object in and cover both eyes. Looking around with your unaffected eye will only encourage additional movement in your damaged eye, so minimize it by covering both. Alcohol does not warm you up. You feel warm since it's dilating your blood vessels in your face and extremities, but that causes you to lose more heat to the environment and therefore will make you die of hypothermia quicker if anything. I've always wondered this. Could alcohol be used as a fuel or accelerant instead of drinking it? I can imagine that if so, that'd actually make it pretty useful. Potentially. But anything one would normally drink, for example vodka, is not quite strong enough to really burn well. But if you happen to get lost while hiking with a bottle of Everclear, gee, I wonder how you got lost. You might be in luck. You don't take a handle of Bacardi 151 on the trail. Buddy, we gotta talk about how you pack. If a bear finds you, run downhill. They can't run downhill. I have to imagine some asshole started this when he wanted to watch his other asshole friend get mauled to death. They can absolutely run downhill and they are shockingly fast. They can also run up trees terrifyingly fast as well. For your information, the mama bear thing really applies to brown bears. Black bear attacks are incredibly rare and usually only from hungry and or aggressive males. I've done a lot of wildlife photography of bears and I've spoken to a lot of wildlife biologists about this. When I photograph black bears and their cubs, they are very docile. If something or you spook them, they will chase their cubs up a tree and then guard the bottom of the tree. They won't attack you. If it's a male black bear, they'll likely wander on, but always keep distance. If you encounter a black bear, make as much noise as possible and make yourself seem as big as possible. If you encounter a brown bear, start very slowly backing up. Never run away and never turn your back. If it's going to attack you and there's nothing can do, lay on your stomach with your hands over the back of your neck and play dead. They primarily attack when they are surprised or threatened. If the surprise threat is gone, they will most likely move on. But please, for the love of God, never run away and never climb a tree. I'm still not clear on if you're supposed to drink your pee or not. Edit okay. Thank you everybody for telling me not to drink piss and making the same dodgeball quote over and over. I get the point now. For the love of God, do not eat everything raw. If I see another episode of Bear Grylls eating a bat or bird as raw as sashimi, I think I'll go crazy. You should absolutely try your best to cook the food you've nabbed, even if it's through an open fire for a few minutes. Eating, say, a dead bird that may or may not have bird flu I'd a heck of a lot worse than creating a fire. Lines, congrats, you completely screwed yourself. Is this a myth? If you're wandering in the wilderness, wondering if the plants and water are safe to eat and drink, watch what the animals do. They will show you the safe plants and water. Spoiler, this is not true. Many animals are evolved to consume things that are poisonous to us or nutritionally valueless. Case in point, vultures. Punching a shark in the nose. Have you seen a shark nose? It's slippery and angles down into 3 rows of teeth. Go for the eyes if you need to, but mostly avoid acting like a wounded seal. If you flail around like duck, it's gonna eat me. The shark will feel obliged to do so. Duck, I guess I'll eat you.